Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Kickabout, where this week we are joined by Shane Pollard and Anthony Donohoe, and myself and the lads are going to talk all things Manchester United in preparation for the new season ahead this coming weekend. So we might as well get straight into it, lads. Anto, I might start with you. How optimistic are you about the season for United? And we might even touch on just kind of some of the pre-season results with United. Any players that stood out to you in some of the games that you watched?
I watched a couple of the games. I didn't see all the games during pre-season. I wouldn't really go too far off pre-season, but I'd say I'm probably quietly optimistic just with the couple of signings they've made and stuff like that. And I wouldn't be going saying, "Oh, we're going to walk the league" or anything like that. But I definitely think we're definitely in a stronger position than we were last year. Probably as a whole, as a group, even just with the couple of signs we brought in and stuff like that. And like the pre-season was hard to really see anybody stand out as such, just because of the Euros and the Copa America and stuff like that. But Lingard probably was out of the younger group, he was probably the main one that I know there was talk from going on loan, and now there's talk that he'd be kept around between Rashford having the operation and stuff like that, and Cavani and stuff coming back late. So no, I'd say I'm quietly optimistic without being overly excited. But I'd like to think that we'll definitely be thereabouts anyway, minimum. Especially with the two signings, I think that's been a big difference in this season, going into the season. Usually come the end of the transfer window, we're still talking about this player that we've been still talking about for 2 months. Whereas this year, at least we've gone and got them. And, I know there's still talk of we need this and we need that. And we definitely still need a few more. But no, I'd say I'm definitely quietly optimistic with the two we've got in and what's already there, definitely, 100%.
And before I suppose we talk about the signings, as Anto mentioned, Shane, what about the players returning from the Euros, the likes of Maguire, Shaw, lads are involved with the England team? Obviously, they're probably coming back with a bit of confidence from the Euros, and also maybe how they performed last season. How important do you think that is for the United players coming back from the Euros?
Yeah, I don't think there's any real negatives, even with the players joining up to the squad late, because Maguire, obviously ultimate professional. Shaw seemed to come back earlier than some of the England lads as well, and supposedly that was because he wanted to get more of a pre-season in, which is a good sign for the coming season. Some of the players got a rest as well, which is important. We obviously, I think Bruno was gassed by the end of last season, and you could see it at the Euros as well. He wasn't playing very well, and Portugal getting knocked out and him getting a bit of a break didn't, it's not a bad thing. So yeah, I think every club's in the same situation, so I wouldn't read too much into it, but it will be interesting to see how the sides are selected over the first couple of weeks and how much of an impact it's going to have, especially with, even though we've made a couple of signings, they've only joined or haven't even joined up with the squad training this week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously we'll just get straight in, I suppose, to the signings, because obviously that's been hugely optimistic from a Man United perspective in terms of obviously eventually signing Sancho and signing a really, really top class defender in Varane. So obviously two quality signings there, Shane. How do you think obviously they're going to fit in? But also, where do you think United still need to strengthen in terms of signings, or would you be happy with the current squad going into the season to compete for a title, not necessarily win a title, but to compete slightly better than previous seasons?
Yeah, well, I still definitely think the one big position is the defensive midfielder, which we've mentioned numerous times, especially if you want Pogba to play more centrally. I know Pogba had some good games out on the left at times last season, but I think with the players we have, that's not going to be his position going forward if he does stay, or even for the rest of this season. And yeah, with the signings we got, obviously super happy with the two of them. I think, like I said to you before we started, Sancho is an amazing signing, but because it went on for so long, kind of took the fun out of it now that it has happened. But once the season gets started and he gets going, I'm really excited because we've needed a right winger for so long. And I think the way that he plays and being a more of a creative winger as well, because when we have Rashford and Greenwood playing on the wings, they're very much finishers or looking to get on the end of moves, and Sancho's almost a playmaker on the wings with the way he plays. So I'm really excited how he's going to, enhance the other forward players as well.
And to you on the signings, obviously Sancho's numbers don't lie in terms of what he's achieved at Dortmund. I know obviously there might be some opposition fans saying, "Oh, sure, it's only the Bundesliga," but as we know, you've followed the Bundesliga quite closely. So what sort of an impact do you think Sancho will have on the team? Also Varane, but also where do you agree with Shane in terms of to really challenge that we need proper out and out defensive midfielder, even potentially Kieran Trippier to come into the squad?
Yeah, and the Sancho one anyway, like delighted that we eventually got there. Like you said, I follow a good bit of the Bundesliga and stuff like that, so I've probably seen him a little bit more as well than what a lot of people would have. And like you said, his numbers don't lie. He's just going to add so much to it, and he's that little bit different where, he's not one of these guys who just beats the fullback and goes to the end line crosses. He can kind of do a bit of everything. And I think like when we see the attacking players we have, like they should be all rubbing their hands saying, this fella coming in, he's going to be able to put a few more goals. Like all people go on about Holland and at Dortmund and all that, but a lot of that comes through playing with the likes of Sancho and all. It's already been a great striker, but you don't have attacking players around you to put them there, the ball there for you, you're not going to score. And so I'm delighted we got that over line. I think, especially for the price we got as well, when you consider some of the figures being knocked around for different players at the minute, I think it's definitely a good business, and I definitely think it's one that we look back on and say, like easily could be the buy of the season, in my opinion anyway. What he will offer, like, and obviously at the back, we all knew we needed a centre half. There was no disguising that, like, so. And it's great to see that they just identified somebody that's everyone regards as a top centre half, and just went out and got him. Like we're still waiting kind of the official, but 99.9% done. So, but the fact that we just went out and got him, and there wasn't, buying somebody obscure really kind of from Spain or somewhere like that, and not really knowing what we're really getting. At least with him, Grant coming in, we know what we're getting. As simple as. So he's going to be a massive, massive addition. Like, and then still, like, what I agree definitely with Shane, the centre, like defensive midfielder, is still like the main area now that needs looking at. And I know yourself anyway is a big fan of Declan Rice to come in and all that. And it just seems like one of my good friends is a West Ham fan, and he was saying like talking around them and all, they want 100 million from him and end the story. And I think that's what the detriment's going to be really to him of going anywhere, is the 100 million side of things. But no, we definitely need a centre defensive midfielder, but I don't think we definitely can't complain with the signings we brought in. I think on paper anyway, the two of them are going to be massive additions to the team. Like.
I think regardless of what team two players like that come in, they're going to make a difference. But again, as you mentioned there, Anto, obviously I'm a big fan of Declan Rice. I think Shane is a big fan as well. Obviously, the price tag would put you off paying that amount for a footballer. But Shane, can you see any alternatives to Declan Rice that are out there that will, I don't know, do you want to call them realistic targets? Potentially Ndidi maybe, but I to be honest, I can see Leicester trying to fleece United on that one as well, trying to get 60, 70, 80 million or something, like ridiculous price for Ndidi. Is there any players out there that you would take if obviously Rice wasn't available or wasn't to be the signing for United?
Yeah, I think Ndidi's the obvious one, and his performance today against City as well. But I think Rice and Ndidi are both just not probably feasible this transfer window. Maybe next summer when Rice has run a year off his contract and he's not signed a new contract and they're under a bit more pressure. But I really don't want it to be a case of buying someone for the sake of buying someone and then looking to replace them. Like, I've seen this Ruben Neves chat, and like, just a waste of time. Like, he's fine. He's an okay footballer. He's decent. He would do a job, but I genuinely would rather just not buy somebody for, say, 35, 40 million. And then in 12 months, 18 months or 2 years time, go out and spend 60, 70, 80 million on someone or identify someone. Yeah, I don't really see the point of it, because then we've already got a bloated squad with loads of big wages of players that we can't get rid of. So as much as there are a couple of positions that we need, and the defensive mid is a big one, I kind of like the way the signings have been done the last couple of years. It's been very much identifying a player. He's the one we want. We get him. We've paid over the odds for a lot of them. Maguire, Wan-Bissaka. But they fixed the problem for us, or they've been a solution for what we needed. And yeah, so I wouldn't be rushing out to buy someone just to kind of, plug a hole with it.
Yeah, and I know obviously Anto mentioned earlier about like getting Sancho at a really good price, getting Varane at a really, really good price. So United have kind of moved away from I don't know, being pulled on a string, I suppose, during the transfer market, where they're paying above and beyond prices for players that probably aren't worth it. But like you said, they actually do a job when they do come to United. They might not necessarily be valued at that price. Do you see it as a point again, Shane? I'll just stick with you on this one. But just to go out and get Declan Rice, maybe not necessarily 100 million, but if he was available for maybe 70, 80 million, do you think it would be worth it at that price, just to go and get him in the team, and then kind of worry about the financial side of it maybe afterwards? Or
yeah, well, like, I think sounds like a really stupid thing to say, but 20 million doesn't matter to Manchester United. So Manchester United buying someone for 80 that is only worth 60. The only thing that's a negative about it really is the fact that the pressure that's going to be on the player. So it's more that, and other fans, and the way it's spoken about, and the comparisons to other footballers. Whereas, yeah, if the player is going to come in, Maguire's the best example by far. He wasn't worth 80 million, but now I reckon if after the Euros and everything, if someone was talking about buying Harry Maguire, they probably would be talking those figures. He seemed to get a lot more respect after the Euros he just had. But yeah, it's just a bit of a tough one. I think we really need to get rid of players. Like, that almost needs to be a focus. And I know there's only a few weeks left, so if we're not looking to get a player in now or players in now, it's probably not going to happen. But there's too many players around the squad with big wages and big contracts, and they just need to be moved on at this stage. And that might be what needs to be done in the next year, and then maybe look at getting a player or two in then to replace them.
Would Phil Jones be top of your list to get rid of at this stage?
And Pereira would be up there.
Yeah, mind you, he scored an absolute worldie in pre-season. I know that doesn't determine whether a player stays at a club or not, but it was probably the goal of.
I just hope it put an extra 5 million on his price tag, as there was scouts there watching it.
There we go, love it, man. Looking at the optimistics of Pereira and scoring a goal in pre-season. Anto, obviously you were saying you're quietly optimistic about the season ahead. How optimistic are you at the thought of Ole going with a 4-3-3 formation this season? Obviously potentially trying to move away from the two holding midfielders, but it may look like he plays two of them on Saturday. But let's say full squad available. How optimistic would you be with the 4-3-3 formation?
I would like to say I'm optimistic, but I think he'll just stick with what he's always done. And even though, the talk was always he played with the two to protect because we were weak, say, centre half, and in theory we fixed that problem now. But I still think definitely for the first quarter of the season at least, he'll definitely still stick to what he's always done. I can't see him just having a radical change, especially with the players we still have, like the likes of Cavani and all to come back. I think he'll still look to just play him up on his own and play the likes of Sancho, Greenwood, Rashford when he's back, Bruno, all them guys in around him. I can't see him just completely switching to the 4-3-3, even though I think to a degree that's probably the way we should go, because on paper our back four in theory is as strong as any of them really now when you look at the four that people will pick, and then the attacking players we have, there should be no real fear really of just letting them go play and not being this thing of, we're nearly playing with 6 defenders when you include McTominay and Fred. So I'd like to think he will, but I just can't see him jumping straight away. Maybe, if you get on a good run or something like that and you get a couple of the guys further up the field that are going well, he might think, I can't afford to leave one of them out and get into a situation where he'll have to play another attacking player rather than another centre defensive midfielder. I think that's the only way I think we'll see him change, if it gets to a stage where he's 4 or 5 kind of attacking players and he feels one of them is undroppable at the minute, and then has to kind of play the 5 of them and then force his hand not to play 2 defensive midfielders. Other than that, I think he'll still stick to the 2. I can't see him changing.
Obviously, Andy mentioned the 2 holding midfielders last year, Shane, and I suppose we could say that was our downfall to a certain extent, that we had 2 defensive midfielders who couldn't defend properly or to the standard or level that we needed, but also you're taking away an attacking player. But again, looking back on the Euros and Paul Pogba's performance in that kind of sitting role or holding role next to Kante, could you see Solskjaer going with something along those lines where he either goes with Fred or McTominay and puts Pogba in next to him? Or can you see Pogba maybe, I'm going to say maybe on the weekend against Leeds, been pushed out onto that left, but throughout the season, could you see him as an option next to one of those? I know this Pogba debate's probably been going around for years, whether you can play there, whether you're not. He does it for France, he doesn't do it for United, but 4 or 5 years in, do we trust him any more than we did when he signed to play that role?
I think, again, it's not like we need to build a full team around Pogba, because that does, you can't do that for one player. But if he plays beside Fred or McTominay, both of them, like you said, they've both got their own strengths defensively. So Fred's a good tackler and good at intercepting. McTominay is a really good athlete, covers lots of ground, but they're not good enough either of them by themselves defensively to be by themselves. So I think even that spell last season where Pogba was playing well in that position was when Matic was playing beside him. So Pogba can obviously play there. We've seen enough one-off performances or running games and stuff, but it's a different topic if you want to talk about trusting him to do it for a full season or, be there the full time. And, even the game that France got knocked out of in the Euros, he was unbelievable, but then he lost the ball in the last minute in a stupid position and they got knocked out of the Euros because of it, basically. And that's just part of who he is as a player. And there's no real answer to the Pogba one. Either, if he stays, I think we'll be having this conversation in 2 years' time. If he goes, we'll be saying how we miss his talents in certain games,
Yeah, we're just going around and around with these Pogba debates and conversations, and like you said, on his day, he probably is our most talented player without a doubt in the squad on his day, but it's that consistency that we just can't obviously get with him. But obviously I touched on, more than likely Pogba will be playing on Saturday against Leeds. Anto, what sort of formation can you see? Not necessarily the formation. Sorry, the starting 11. Can you see Ole going with on Saturday? Obviously, the news is that Sancho potentially is kind of 50-50 chance whether he starts or not. Varane probably unlikely to be risked kind of last minute after maybe 2 days training with the first team?
Yeah, I think just with Cavani not being available still, and obviously Lingard's out, Rashford's out. I definitely think Sancho. I think he'll start, not necessarily because he wants him to start, but nearly kind of his hand being played for him just because of the situation. But the team I wrote out, I think he'll still play 4-2-3-1 because the way Leeds are, they're going to come with a lot of energy and all that, and then to a degree, they're not going to have that thing of all their players near enough would have had a decent break and stuff like that. So not a lot of them had big Euro commitments and stuff like that, apart from one or two. But I still think he played a 4-2-3-1, and I think De Gea starting goals just because of what's going on around Henderson and all that kind of stuff. And then the back four I picked was Wan-Bissaka. I think you're right on the Varane situation. Just the timing is just going to be too tight. So I said Lindelof, Maguire, Shaw, and the only reason I put Maguire and Shaw back in, not that just because we need them for 1 point, but the two of them played in the last pre-season game and all that kind of stuff. So you'd imagine they're good to go. Then I played two, but I played Pogba and McTominay as a two because I know Fred obviously had the extended Copa America and all that. So, and I know McTominay. I don't think McTominay played any of pre-season, so I don't really know what the story is there. If there's something behind the scenes or something with him going on, but they were the two I picked. Then picked Bruno, obviously, for obvious reasons. And then I picked Martial on the left because I think he just offers more when he plays off the left than he does through the middle. Then Sancho off the right because that's just where he's going to play. And then I had Greenwood to play through the middle because he's had a good pre-season. He's got a few goals. And I think when you talk to a lot of United fans, that's where they see him eventually going to. So I think now is the chance, especially at the start of the season, just with the players that are missing, to give him that chance to play through the middle and see how he goes. So that'd be the 11 I would pick if I was in Ollie's shoes for the weekend. Could be miles off, but that's what I would go with my 11 anyway.
Yeah, I kind of have a feeling that Dan James could be in operation on the right hand side just because of the Sancho situation, in terms of he just, I think, started training, was it yesterday or the day before? So potentially you can see Dan James starting on the right, Martial on the left, and Greenwood down the centre. Same back four, obviously De Gea is there due to Henderson's injury. Probably, yeah, I don't know. I'd like to be optimistic and say maybe he would try Pogba with McTominay, but I don't know if it's a game to just try something. And as we know, and we've seen plenty of times, Ole has his set ways and he sticks with them. So he might just go with Fred, McTominay, but I would like to see Pogba in beside McTominay, just a bit more energy, a bit more strength in there as well. I don't know, would they potentially get overrun by a bit of pace by Leeds on the counter-attack? Shane, would you make many changes to Anto's team?
No, well, I think, keeper and back four, it picks itself at the moment, although I'm definitely in the Henderson camp going forward for the rest of the season. Even the game against Everton the other day, De Gea kept a clean sheet, but there was one moment where there was a ball over the top that half came for, and then he backpedaled into his goals and gave Everton a great chance. And there was a cross 5 minutes later that he was very weak with, that again Everton should have scored from. So yeah, he has to play this weekend because of what's gone on, but going forward, I'm definitely in favour of him not being in goals. It's really tough to pick the rest of the team because of fitness and who's played. Like Matic has played a lot of pre-season, played well as well in the bits I've seen. I don't know if the pace is a worry. It wouldn't shock me if Fred and McTominay both just went straight back in, and almost thinking about the 6-2 game in Old Trafford last day when the two sides met. And obviously Bruno plays, and then the front three is kind of, it could be any mix of Sancho, Pogba, Greenwood, Martial, whoever gets picked. I'd imagine Greenwood's going to play, and I'd imagine James as well. I don't know. It will say a lot about what Solskjaer thinks of his squad right now in terms of match fitness, because if if he's unsure, I think we'll see McTominay, Fred, James, maybe even Pogba on the left if he's trying to be, a bit more secure starting off and then see how the game goes. If he starts with Pogba, Martial, Sancho and Greenwood all on the pitch and Bruno, then it might be an indication of maybe looking to change how they go for games more this season. So I've really no idea who's going to be that front three.
Yeah, it's certainly a good headache, I suppose, for Ole to have, especially when we have a fully fit squad like Cavani to come back. Obviously, Rashford after his shoulder injury. We might touch on briefly just Martial. Anto, what are you expecting from him this season? Obviously, he seems like he performs every second season, and the season that he doesn't perform, he's pretty much non-existent on the pitch, and we could be playing with 10 players as opposed to 11. What sort of Martial are you expecting to turn up this season? Just take a note, shaved head Martial in training that we spotted the other day. So does he mean business?
Who knows? I don't think he even knows himself what sort of Martial is going to turn up. He's definitely one of them players, isn't he? Just like, he's obviously got to the stage himself where he pulled his own hair out, where you're just like, some days you watch him play and you're like, Jane, you were onto something here with this guy. And then you watch him the next 2 or 3 games and you're like, how did this guy ever get this far? But hopefully, obviously, we'll see a little bit more of the old kind of spell he had a couple of seasons ago, where he looked like he was actually like going to really be the main man, kind of, to the degree. He just always looks like really like not bothered, or if things aren't going his way, it's like he's a big sulk or something, and he just vanishes out of the game. I think he's really one of those players, especially for an attacking player. Needs to have a good first 10 minutes, needs to maybe have a shot or set up a good chance or something like that. And then he builds on that from there. Where, if he has a first 10 or 15 when, he doesn't really get a sniff of the ball, or, he's spending more time tracking back than going forward, I think his mind loses it and he kind of just loses interest to a degree. And so hopefully we won't see that side of him, and hopefully we'll see him all guns blazing and going for it, because especially like we're saying, with a couple of guys that are back late and injured and stuff, it's probably a chance for him, because, with the players we have at that end of the pitch, it's going to be very easy for a so-called big name to be left out week on week. And Ollie's not in a position now, when he has everyone back, that he feels he has to play this player because I don't have anybody else. Now he's abundance of options up there. So, if he's not doing it or whoever's not doing it, I think it's a lot easier for him now to pull them out. So I think there's a lot more pressure on them players to perform week in, week out now. So maybe that's a little bit what he needs, as well. I know, for a while there, he was being left out and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully now that it looks like he's going to get a chance for the first few weeks anyway, that he'll hit the ground running and keep going, kind of thing. At the end of the day, for us as United fans, we want all them guys on top of the form and making it really hard to pick who we'll think will play as those top 3 or 4 guys. We want basically be in a position of trying to pick 4 out of 6 or 7, because they're all firing. So hopefully that's the way he goes. But he's just a minefield, I think. You just don't know what sort of way he's going to come. Or, I think there's a lot of talk in United fans, with everyone that was fit up until maybe the last few weeks, obviously Rashford stuff, that, if the right bid came, they would have been happy enough for him to move on. In a couple of weeks' time, he could hit the ground running, and people saying, geez, we shouldn't be letting this guy go anywhere. So I just think he's one of those kind of infuriating players where one day you think world beer, then the next 2 weeks you don't even realise he's on the pitch. Then he comes back again, and you have just like a cycle with him. So hopefully he can just get the head down and it go right for us, with him. So fingers crossed.
And speaking of bids and stuff, obviously there was rumours that Inter Milan were thinking about a 50 million bid for Martial. Obviously, I think it's really, really important actually that we do keep him. I know there's debate around, obviously we might not get that sort of offer again for Martial, but I do think it's important that we keep him with how Rashford is out until October. But also to have, could you imagine a Martial on fire? Martial from maybe his first season with that bit more of a drive or desire, coming off the bench or obviously starting or having as an option. Shane, is it Martial's last chance in a United shirt this season? And then if he underperforms again, is it eventually time to move him on?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's last chance. Like another probably important point with him is like Cavani's only here for this season and then he's gone. So if we're going to be moving forward with like that's a player lost, that's a player gone that we'd need to replace. So we sold Martial. That's probably two players, out of the squad. And it's all well and good having the young lads coming up but they've still got a lot of, learning to do and experience to gain before we can consider them in that caliber. So I think it is his last chance. Like Anto said, he's just so frustrating. Like the game away to Man City last season, he absolutely destroyed Diaz and Stones. Like he played up front by himself, held the ball up amazing, brought others into play, won the penalty. He was brilliant. Like it was a perfect lone striker performance against a team away from home. And then we'll all remember the Sheffield United performance at Old Trafford, where he was like the worst player that's ever played for the club that day. But I think players like Martial are going to decide where we finish this season, I think, because you almost know with a bulk of the first team squad what you're going to get from them. But it's the likes of Martial and your Pogba that if they have a 7 or 8 out of 10 season compared to a 4 or a 5, that's when we suddenly become. I don't think we are good enough to challenge for the title as it gets into the later half of the season, say. But the one thing that I think could make us do it is if the likes of Pogba and Martial did show up this season, because like when he does play well, he's amazing. And I do think that, I know I've already said about Sancho as well and the way he plays. Like I think Martial is a very intelligent player. His link up is actually very good. He spots things, he makes movement, he's looking for 1-2s. The other players we have like Greenwood and Rashford around him aren't necessarily good at that. So I'm excited if they get minutes together. I'm excited to see Sancho and Martial and how they play together.
And obviously Shane just mentioned there, like if those two players obviously hit form, that you could see a potential title challenge. But Anto, I'll put the question to you: where do you actually see United finishing this season? And we might actually, between us, the three of us, just touch on obviously the other clubs that will be involved with a title challenge. Obviously, you got Liverpool, you got Chelsea, you got City. Probably out of those four, no one else would probably gate crash the top four, unless you guys have an opinion on that. But I certainly don't think anyone will gate crash that top four. But I just have a feeling this season, again, I don't think if United get the centre defensive midfielder, I can see them putting in a real challenge, and obviously all players performing on a more consistent level. But I probably can see us maybe dropping short a little bit. But I just have this feeling that the season's going to involve a proper battle. It'd be great to see if it was a proper battle between four clubs, and potentially 5, 6, 7 points between them come the end of the season. I think it's something maybe the Premier League needs, because when was the last time we've had a 3-horse race? I can't even remember the last time we probably even had a 4-horse race. But Anto, where realistically, what is your gut? Are you calling it here on the podcast that United are going to win the league, or where do you see us finishing? And also, what sort of threats or what do you see coming from the likes of Liverpool, Man City, and Chelsea this season?
I think, like you're saying there, I think we'll just be a little bit too shy to be up there come the end. I definitely think we're in a position like to be in that race up to a point, with what we've done so far. But I just think, you're relying on your attacking players always kind of performing. When I think, like, if you don't get that centre defensive midfielder, we're going to lose stupid games along the way to teams that maybe the other people around us won't lose them games, because they're just maybe a little bit more secure. But like then if you have a game where 2 or 3 of your attacking players have an off day and you're playing one of the so-called smaller teams, say, and they nick a goal, and I can just see us still having maybe 1 or 2 of them throughout the season. And then, I just don't see like the likes of Man City maybe having like that problem along the way. I think they're the ones to be, obviously. Just with the additions they brought in, and then obviously if they bring Kane in as well, even though it's very much still up in the air what's happening there, but I think if they add him in, then they'll be untouchable to a degree. I think it's teams to a degree. Like, Diaz was a big standout from last season. I think it's going to be very hard for him to have another season like that. And I think, because he was new to the league, maybe not so well known, strikers maybe to a small degree were going in a bit blind playing against him. For this year, you'll have different strikers that'll be a little bit more clever when it comes to playing against him and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how he does that. But I think City will win it, I think. And I'd like to think we will finish second. I would like to think that's what I'd be hoping anyway. And then I think just with the players to have, I'd go Chelsea third and Liverpool fourth, would be my opinion. My fear with Liverpool would be, if I was a Liverpool fan anyway, would be, you're putting a lot, and I know they brought in a new centre half and all that, but you're putting a lot back on Van Dijk coming back in after a full year out. Obviously, Robertson looks like he's going to be out for a few weeks come the start, so you're relying on maybe a Milner or that guy that bought last year, I'm going to try and pronounce his name, to play left back. So, they could be open for the first while that way. And like on the flip side for Liverpool, I can't see the likes of Mane having a season like he had last season. You have to imagine he's going to come back to a degree like from what he was last year. He was so off the boil. So that's like, then with Chelsea, just the attacking players to have, I think will fire them to a degree. I know there's a lot of talk with Lukaku and all, and how he'll go from what we experienced with him and all that. But I think to a degree, as far as a goal scorer, he's a different beast to when he left United. I think he's just a more clinical. Don't get me wrong, like he still doesn't have the greatest first touch, doesn't have this and that to his game, but I just think he's a little bit more complete from what he was when he left United. But I'd like to think, if I was being hopeful, that come mid-April, that the 4 teams would still be there, and the team that's in fourth will still be looking at first, saying, we put 1 or 2 here together, we're right on their tail, kind of thing. And like you said, I think it's probably something the league needs, because there's nothing worse, like, even no matter who you support, nothing worse when you're following the league all year, and then come the start of April, middle of April, that side of it of who's going to win the title kind of dies a death. You wanted to push at least the May kind of thing of where are we going to go. But if I was to be optimistic, I'd go City, United, Chelsea, Liverpool. Hopefully, would be the hope.
Shane, I'm going to ask you, obviously, City sign Kane, do they win the league? But if they don't sign Kane, can you still see them winning the league? With, we'll say, obviously, Jack Grealish, as anyone who listens to the podcast knows, we're both huge admirers. Anto's an admirer of him as well. But can you see any, I suppose, defaults with the likes of City or Liverpool or Chelsea that, I don't know, the likes of obviously Man United could capitalise on something that could potentially go wrong for them throughout the season? Because as we know, obviously last season, a lot of teams kind of underperformed, including ourselves at times. I know we finished second, but we still probably, if we hold our hands up and we're being honest, we probably did underperform, especially at the start of the season and kind of towards the end of the season. But back to the original question. Kane to sign for City, can you see City winning the league?
Yeah, I think if Kane signs, it's game over for the Premier League. I think if City don't sign a striker, they actually could be a bit vulnerable. I think this whole fluid formation they tried to play at the end of last season without a striker, this is going to sound really stupid because they won the league easily, but teams were starting to figure them out at the end, and we saw what Chelsea did to them in the Champions League final. And like Guardiola wants to play a team with 10 midfielders and a goalkeeper kind of thing. And I think they could be a little bit vulnerable if they don't do something about that. I think Chelsea and Liverpool will only get better this season. Liverpool obviously can't have the same injuries they had last year. They can't have that bad luck. My only concern with Liverpool, and Liverpool fans might be against me with this, but I don't know if they have the strength and depth. Especially compared to City and Chelsea once you get past their first 11. But like the scary thing about Chelsea is half of their players didn't perform last year. They didn't get anything out of Werner. They didn't get anything out of Havertz really. Ziyech. None of these guys showed up for any sort of prolonged period last season, and you would imagine they're all going to get better this season. So I think it's going to be a really tough season. Like I think Man United have improved with the 2 signings, and I think we've got a good squad to choose from now. We've got a good 5 or 6 subs that can come on, but I still think definitely City and Chelsea are going to probably be a bit too far. And like being completely honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we finished 4th. It wouldn't surprise me if we finished 2nd, or it wouldn't surprise me if we finished 4th, kind of just as much with what goes on this season. I think the top 4 are all going to probably be a bit too good for the rest of the league. Even for Leicester this season as well, I think.
Yeah, like my heart is obviously saying United win the league, but obviously the head and being a bit more realistic. I think obviously you want to go into a season being optimistic, which I am. You want to be with the aim of winning the league, but I don't know, like if you were to say right now, if we were to finish 2nd or 3rd and within 5-6 points of the winners, whether that's City, Liverpool or Chelsea, again, that's an improvement on last season, but is an improvement enough at this stage? Do we need to be winning? Obviously, as United fans, we want that to happen. But do we have that bit more patience with Ole for another season? I know we can get into a huge debate about whether he's the man to bring us beyond the point that he is at now, or that could be another manager in the future. But
I'd really like a good Champions League run. Yeah. Like that. I can't remember. One of you two might be able to tell me. I can't remember the last time we had a good Champions League run where, we went far into the competition and, really gave it a good go. And, I miss those 2 legs against a Real Madrid or a Bayern Munich or Juventus or whoever it might be. Like I'd love a good, consistent Premier League season, and just to start getting to be a name in European football competitions again.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I said, those European nights as well. Obviously we're not very fond of the Thursday nights, but we definitely need to be getting out of a group stage 100% next season, and at least getting to a quarterfinal, if not to a semi-final. Again, those signings could make a difference. Again, Champions League football can be very different to obviously the week in, week out slug of the English Premier League. But like you have to, I think you just have to be optimistic going into a season, and I can't remember the last time I was this optimistic just about the season ahead, as opposed to almost dreading the first couple of games, because as we all know, even under Fergie, United never really started the season well. They might have picked up momentum throughout the season and finished really, really strong, but our downfall has always been, for a majority of time, from what I can remember, is our start. That was the same under Mourinho. It was the same obviously under Solskjaer as well last season. Van Gaal, remember he lost an opening day game against Swansea at home. I suppose David Moyes is the only one that started probably in a real positive aspect. But yeah, like we just have to be optimistic, I suppose, as United fans, but also be realistic on another hand. So what we might just do, just to finish off with a little bit of a bit of fun, I suppose, and we might do a couple of quick fire questions. So what we'll do first is quick fire questions in relation to Man United, and then we might move on to like player of the season in terms of within the Premier League, young player of the season, signing of the season, relegation, etc., etc. But Anto, I might go to you first. So these are going to be like quick fire ones, all right?
You could have given us a heads up about these questions.
So it's all part and parcel, isn't it? The surprise element, guys. Might be like United season, a bit of a surprise element come the end. But Anto, first one to you, top scorer for United.
United, Cavani.
Shane?
Greenwood.
Yeah, I have Greenwood written down as well. Paul Pogba, will he be a United player come the end of the transfer window? Anto?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Yes. Full house. What young player can you potentially see breaking into the first team? Kind of similar to Greenwood a couple of seasons ago, Anto.
Lingard.
Same, yeah. Lingard.
Yeah, probably Elanga. I know there's talk of Hannibal as well, but probably Elanga based on how he's done in pre-season and kind of towards the end of last season.
Just the position he plays as well is probably almost easier to come up to first team football.
Yeah, especially at the start of the season, I suppose, with obviously we definitely need bodies up front with so many players out at the start of the season. Anto, what player do you think will surprise us this season? Whether that's positive or negative.
For United.
Yeah, for United.
Go mad or go Pogba. It surprises.
I like it.
Martial.
Yeah, I had Martial written down as well. I'm just, again, probably quietly optimistic that he'll pull off a good season.
Nobody's mentioned Van de Beek the whole podcast.
I know.
You have hopes for him?
I think so. I think it just depends on how he starts. Like, again, we might as well just have a little minute chat on it, I suppose. Can you see him breaking into that team? He's done all right in pre-season, Shane, but
I think he'll definitely get more minutes.
Yeah, he'll get more minutes, definitely. But can you see him cementing place? Because from obviously, I really like him as a footballer. I'd love to see him playing with Fernandes and the likes of a fully fit Rashford, because Van de Beek is very much about one-touch football, one-touch pass and moving. Yeah. Whereas at times Pogba can tend to slow down the play. Even some of our obviously defenders coming out with the ball can slow down the play at times as well. Martial maybe holding on to the ball a bit too long. But if he's around good players, I'd love to see him with Fernandes. What's your thought on that one?
I just don't think he fits into the 4-2-3-1 at all. So I think that's the problem. Like he's not one of the defensive midfielders the way he plays, because he likes to like drift and get into space and like between the lines and stuff. So I think if we are looking at playing this 4-3-3 formation, he can be one of the two slightly more advanced ones. Yeah, that would be my take on it. I struggle to see where he fits in, because he's not a 10 either. He's not like, he doesn't go in and play where Fernandes plays in our usual formation, and he can't play in the double pivot, if that's what you want to call it. But it's just a tough one because, yeah, he doesn't really suit the formation that we mostly play, I don't think.
And can you see Van de Beek having a better season? But also, if you say better season, we just want to see him have a big impact at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I think hopefully anyway. I think, like, in fairness to him, I think maybe before he even really got off the ground to a degree, he was like destroyed by the media about, you know, he's only getting a couple of minutes at the end of a game and stuff like that. And I think everyone else kind of just outside of United fans probably kind of bought into that of, oh geez, massive flop and all. But I think he was kind of killed by the media before he was ever given a real shot at kind of getting into the team and all that. It's like, I agree with Shane as well, but the formation probably doesn't suit him to a degree, like, and that's probably like where we need to change a little bit going forward, like especially with Varane sign. You know, when we're playing the smaller bottom half of the table teams, you'd like to see us take the risk of just play McTominay or just play Fred, and then that opens up the likes of Van de Beek to come in and play a little bit more. Like, I've never seen a fella like in recent times be so like killed by everyone else's fans, but yeah, every United fan you talk to, everyone seems to kind of have a soft spot for him of, you know, geez, I really hope that he turns the corner and this works out for him kind of thing. Like, I don't think I've met any United fan that's kind of been like, no, he's terrible, let's get rid of him. What were we doing by him? It's all very much like,
My dad.
there's always one.
My dad, yeah. I just want him to do well to prove my dad wrong.
Like, in the majority, every United fan you talk to, it's very much like, just, I hope he turns the corner. I hope, he gets more minutes. It's not like, oh no, we messed up there, let's forget about him, move on kind of thing. Because I definitely think when you do see him play, the little bit he did play, he definitely has bits about him. Like, it's hard to go off, people talk about when you're playing at Ajax, where you see Ajax on average, probably 70% possession in games. Suits him down to the ground, just to knock it around stuff. So it's hard to go off, that to a degree. But no, I hope it does. And like I said, with Varane there, maybe that opens us up not to play the two in some of the games, and maybe gives him a chance then to play a little bit more, hopefully.
Yeah, and speaking of players that have maybe something to prove as well, can you see Shane Lingard getting many minutes and having a bit of an impact at United this season? Because obviously it looks like he will be staying. He won't be going back to West Ham. I'm sure we'd all accept a player exchange plus cash for the Rice deal, but it probably looks like Lingard will be staying. Can you see him having an impact at Old Trafford this season?
No, I don't. I just don't see the point in him staying for his own sake and for us. Like we've spoke all the names we've mentioned in the podcast so far of that front three and or the number 10 position where he might play. There's a lot of players ahead of him, or there's a lot of younger players that you'd rather get the minutes in the cup games and stuff. Like I'd even rather the young players be traveling with the first team squad, even if they don't get minutes, than bringing a Lingard. And Lingard suits counter-attacking football. Like, he was brilliant for West Ham because they sat back and caught teams on the counter-attack. If we want to be progressive and be on the front foot, he's not the type of player. Like, it doesn't suit him, and I just don't think that. I'd rather see the likes of Elanga, Ahmad, Greenwood, obviously. Like, I'd rather see these guys just get more and more minutes under the belts because I think they've got more to offer over the next 5 years or even 2 years than he does possibly. So, no.
Yeah. Anto, just obviously keeping an eye on the clock here, but anything to add to what Shane said about Lingard, or would you agree with a majority of it?
I agree with the majority of it. I'm surprised, obviously getting the COVID himself kind of thing has probably knocked it back a little bit. I'm surprised for himself he hasn't kind of pushed to go somewhere. I know there was talk, he wanted to stay and fight for his place. But, like, what's he, 28 now, I think he is? Like, why not go to West Ham and be the hero there for 3 or 4 years? Sure, like, he had half a season there, and like West Ham fans love him, will take him back in the morning, no questions asked. Like, but I think then the talk was, United were looking for 30 million or something for him as an asking price. So that's probably obviously another issue. But I'm surprised from his side he didn't try and push something to go back to the likes of that kind of level to West Ham and be the main man in them types of clubs, that kind of. I think that role suits him,
Perfect. Yeah, I personally don't see any spot really potentially on the bench here and there maybe, but that's about it. So we might just actually go back to the last went off in a bit of a tangent there, lads, but we might go back to the last quickfire question in terms of United. So how many points from United's first 4 games, Leeds, Southampton away, Wolves away, Newcastle at home, will United accumulate, Anto? 10. Shane?
10.
I'm gonna go bold and say 12. Full points. Very overly optimistic probably on that one. So we might just jump onto the Premier League questions. Obviously we can chat a little bit more about this. But might go to you first on this one, Shane. 3 teams or 3 clubs to be relegated from the Premier League.
Oh, who went up? I think Crystal Palace, Southampton, and Watford.
Yeah. Is the Palace one kind of in relation to Patrick Vieira going in, and obviously they lost, was it like 12 first team players due to contracts running out? Or
yeah, I don't get the Vieira. appointment at all, to be honest. It's just like a bit of a celebrity manager kind of thing. So, but saying that, I did see that they announced about having some new investor today. So I don't know if that's going to change anything over the next few weeks. But I can just, I don't like. I still don't have a lot of faith in Norwich, but I can just see Palace. I can just see Palace struggling for goals again, and maybe with Hodgson gone, they won't be as solid as they were. They won't play as defensive, and they might actually backfire with that squad.
Okay. Anto, 3 clubs to get relegated?
Same 3 picked from before, basically. For the same kind of reason Shane was saying, and like Southampton kind of came as a new one when they let Ings go. You're kind of looking out, say, who's going to score a goal for you?
So I thought I was being bold picking Southampton. I can't believe you picked the same.
Believe it or not, I actually put them down. I kind of had.
Well, Vestergaard's gone as well now to Leicester.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking like they've gotten rid of obviously Danny Ings out of nowhere. Ryan Bertrand as well, Vestergaard. So like that's the bulk.
Ward-Prowse looks like he might leave as well.
Yeah, so like that's.
And their big signing of this window, some fella from Chelsea that I've never heard of.
Yeah, I think they signed Adam Armstrong from Blackburn today as well to replace Danny Ings. So I actually have Southampton down. I have Watford and I have Palace as well. Watford are they're one of those teams. You look at their squad and you kind of in a way have no idea who half the players are. Majority of the time, I know they have a couple of lads that we obviously know, like Troy Deeney, Sarr as well, Bush, Ben Foster, obviously ex-United, but they're just a bit of a yo-yo club at this stage. Palace, pretty much the same reasons as you, Shane. Don't really get the VAR. I think it was kind of rushed last minute. Well, not last minute, but kind of a panic one. Right, what's that? Player of the season, Anto, in the Premier League.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I go optimistic. I'm going to say Sancho.
That's a big shout.
Why not?
I'll go Kai Havertz.
Kai Havertz. I believe the Liverpool lads voted him. I think the majority on the Liverpool podcast went Havertz as player of the season. I don't know. Like again, it can be such a hard one. Like Havertz is definitely obviously in with a shout based on how he kind of ended his season at Chelsea. I don't know, like and we didn't even touch on Lukaku too much, but like would he potentially come in and be a player of the season? I doubt it. Would a Liverpool player? I don't know. All right, I'll just go with if Kane goes to City, I can see Kane picking up player of the year. Apart from that, possibly Havertz, or it could be an N'Golo Kante again if Chelsea win or go close to winning the league. Shane, young player of the year.
Sancho will be eligible for that, won't he?
Yeah, I think it's 24, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll go Sancho.
So does that make Sancho yours as well, Nanto? Double.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
A pretty good signing for United if he's able to pick up those 2 awards come the end of the season. I'm going to go bold, lads, and go Greenwood. Think he's going to have a really, really good season, especially because he will start a lot of games at the beginning of the season. So second last one, who finishes 5th and 6th if we have obviously United, City, Chelsea and Liverpool as our top 4? Who's finishing 5th and 6th, Shane?
I will go Leicester, and I'm going to do another bold one, Aston Villa.
Anto?
It's where we were talking before this. It's exactly the ones, because I think your man Leon Bailey has been a great signing for Villa. Like. Yeah. I think he'd make a big difference there.
They've done well with the money they're getting for Jack Grealish, in fairness, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%.
Buendia is a brilliant footballer.
Yeah, and obviously Danny Ings, in terms, like, think about it, Danny Ings, Ollie Watkins up front, bit of pace, goals, they know how to finish. So
And they tend to play 4-4-2 usually as well. So
Yeah,
it's not like, I can't see Watkins being thrown to the side just because Ings comes in. Like,
yeah, I don't know. Maybe he could play on the left hand side in terms of where Grealish played. Coming in from
Dean
that
Smith said he's going to play him up front.
is he?
Yeah, he said it. Yeah.
So 2 up top.
Said he bought him to play up front, so he'd be playing there.
back to the old classic 4-4-2. But just going to say, lads, we didn't actually discuss this beforehand, but I actually had the same as you had Villa Leicester. So I had Villa ahead of Leicester. So
Villa are going to finish like 14th now, and we're going
to. And last question before we wrap up the pod, guys. Anto, to you, score prediction for United Leeds Saturday, 12:30, I think, kickoff.
Going back to my 4-game prediction, I'm going to go 2-2. That's the game that I think we'll drop the 2 points in.
Shane?
3-2 United.
Okay, I'm going to go 3-1 United. Greenwood with 2. So
Bruno
again,
penalty.
Yeah, Bruno penalty to kickstart the season. But lads, enjoyed having you back on. Obviously, hopefully a good season ahead in terms of United, but we'll definitely be chatting more throughout the season. I hope you enjoyed being back on, and don't forget to make sure you have your fantasy football teams in by deadline on Friday evening.
Will do. Cheers, guys.
Take it easy, lads.
Thanks.